my name is Georgia. I studied at the University of Stirling. I studied a degree in politics and it was from 2015 to 2019. I'm from Edinburgh in Scotland. So the Lazy Student is a university and lifestyle channel which focuses on well-being, productivity and sustainability. I actually ended up graduating in politics. That's not the course I started with at Stirling University. I actually started with an unconditional offer for film and media and psychology as a joint honours. Around my second year, I decided for various reasons that it wasn't really suiting me, mostly because I don't perform well in the kind of exam situations that those specific modules required. So I decided to look around and see that I'd already taken a few politics modules. I had really enjoyed it. And I was like, yeah, I want to try and get a good grade, so I'm going to switch over to politics now. And that's what I did. So initially, I chose film and media and psychology because those are two things I was really interested in. To be absolutely honest with you, I didn't actually really want to go to university. There were other paths that I wanted to go with. For instance, I'm super interested in acting and in music. Performing arts was something I really enjoyed at school, but unfortunately, due to familial pressure, shall we say, I was sort of pushed not so lightly into university. And yeah, so I was looking for courses that would spark my creativity, and the way that Stirling University courses like film media came across they were really creative, and that's something that I was really looking forward to. Psychology also, I'd always been interested in how people's minds worked, and I thought maybe one day I could be a therapist. But like I said, just due to kind of my personal feelings about the course and not performing well in exams in the end, I drifted more towards politics. I would say that for anyone doing film media at Stirling, you actually need to wait till your third year of university to do anything practical, and the media-based textbook stuff just wasn't for me.
Okay, so you said you'd done politics for the 4 years.
Yeah, so I had actually intertwined. The way that Stirling modules work is slightly different than most other universities, and I really like it. So you get 3 modules. 2 of them are the ones that obviously you're studying. So if you started politics, you'd be studying 2 politics modules, and you get a 3rd module, which is a choice from things like English or film media or journalism. And you actually get to take one every year up until, I believe, 3rd year. So I'd already taken a politics module, and I thought, I actually really enjoy this. So I kind of kept through it during all the semesters, which really helped my decision. And it's nice because I think part of the reason they let you pick another module is so that you do have that other option. If you decide, oh, this main course isn't for me, you can sort of skip over to what you were doing.
What did you think of your course?
I really enjoyed it. So politics at Stirling University it's enjoyable because you study such a vast array of things. You get to choose your modules within reason. So my political modules were a lot to do with the environment, which is something that I believe in sustainability so much, and it's something I'm really passionate about. And I found that getting to choose between what you're studying within your subject was really exciting for me personally. I mean, not everyone loves politics, but you got to study things like John Locke and Hobbes, which is all the kind of great political thinkers and all the old politics, but you also got new ones, like I said, current environmental issues in politics and human rights in politics, which was just extremely interesting for me.
Did you come from a sixth form or college background?
So I came from a school background. I actually went to school in Edinburgh, and I did my 6th year of school where I took my hires. Sometimes in Scotland, well, most of the time people take what's called advanced hires, which I believe is close to AS level maybe, but I had already gotten my unconditional offers to university in my 5th year, so I decided to be kind of lazy, and I was like, I've already got my uni offer, I'll just do a couple more crash hires thrown in there. And yeah, I kind of regret not doing any more qualifications than, what I could have done in my 6th year. But like I said, I was already in university, so I was like, okay, I'll just do that. So the university won't want you to have any specific subjects to go into things like social sciences, because they are quite broad topics anyway. So what I took were things like history and modern studies, and those are something that universities would prefer and look for. But like I said, there aren't any specific kind of prerequisites to a course in social sciences. It's more just showing that you have a general knowledge of things like history and geography. But one thing I would say for anyone in school, is to take English and maths as high as you possibly can, because I didn't take maths and pass intermediate 2, and I really regret it because a lot of universities do look for kind of hires at least in English and maths.
Okay, so
no, I didn't take a placement year. It wasn't really something that I was offered because of being at politics. It wasn't something that people usually do a placement for. I was starting off with the worst. So I would say the worst things are that Stirling isn't a kind of main city centre like Edinburgh or Glasgow or Newcastle. So it is a really small kind of town. It's enclosed. The campus is actually kind of enclosed in itself, which means that it's all on the campus. And that can feel good, but it can also feel quite lonely because you feel as though you're in this bubble of university, and even when you venture out, there's not a heck of a lot going on in the city centre. If you're one for nightlife, there's only two university clubs, shall I say? So not as in nightclubs. So there's only 2 nightclubs in town, which are pretty much university folks go there. It's Dusk and Foo Bar, and I don't rate any of them, which will probably cause a stir. But yeah, so I would say it is a small town, so if you're looking for really busy nightlife and everything, Stirling probably isn't for you. I would say the best things are that the people are just the most genuine, friendliest people I've ever met. Everyone at Stirling was so friendly. They were so inclusive. The university really does have a focus on inclusivity and well-being. And I would say that even though it is a small enclosed campus, it is really beautiful. There's so much greenery. There's a loch, which is kind of a body of water in the middle of the campus, and it's just gorgeous to walk around. Going back to a negative though, at the same time, it is beautiful, the campus, but the buildings are really old. The buildings aren't old as in like, oh, Oxford, it's beautiful. They're kind of old as in like, oh, there's asbestos in them, and kind of old. So if you're looking for beautiful buildings, I definitely wouldn't say that's Stirling. But like I said, the campus kind of makes up for that. Sure, so I lived on campus in a place called Juiper Court. Now, Juiper Court was the newest building. It was actually finished the year that I went, which was 2015, making me feel old now. And it was around 650 pounds per calendar month, which is extortionate for what you get. The facilities are good, but they're basic. I would definitely say to people, don't expect a huge room. Don't expect, lots and lots for what you're paying for. You get a small room. You could probably just swing a cat in. You get a 3/4 length bed, a small desk, and you get a little bit of inbuilt storage and a small ensuite. The ensuite was really a positive because there are some accommodations in Stirling like Polworth, if I'm name dropping, which really aren't worth the money and have problems. There's also Way, which is kind of chalet type accommodation, and there's a bit of mold, it's really not a fun place to be. So I would say that if you're going to stay in Stirling, I recommend Juiper Court, Beach or Willow Court if you can kind of stretch your budget to that. So in my second year, I actually moved in with my boyfriend and we stayed off campus in a lovely place in Byron, which is just outside, kind of in Stirling, but just outside of the university. And yeah, it was really, really nice. We went private rent. I would say that renting in Stirling, it's a bit difficult because everything's really expensive. They know it's students, obviously, and it's not really up to scratch. I would say really take your time when renting in Stirling because landlords try and get away with anything. So yeah, definitely make sure there's no mold, etc., because they'll try and blame you for it. So I would say, first of all, finding the place is actually kind of difficult because there are a lot of listings, but they go like this. They're so fast. Everyone wants to move off of campus in second year. So actually finding a place is difficult. Second of all, finding a place as a student specifically is difficult because as soon as you say on the phone, I'm looking for a place and I'm in my second year of university, they're like, we don't take students. So a lot of the time you really need to look for a long time to find student-specific accommodation because they think you're going to be partying and ripping up the place. In terms of moving in with my boyfriend, who I still live with, I would say that It is a jump to move in with someone. It's even a jump to move in with your friends, you know, because you've known them for a year. I would just say that make sure that you talk about things like rent up front, make sure that you talk about your standard of living, not just as a couple, but you need to discuss with your flatmates as well. You need to say, look, I will not stand for socks being left on the floor, and I will not stand for dishes being moldy and piled up, soaking by the sink. So you kind of need to get all that out there no matter who you're living with. And in terms of paying bills, etc., make sure you've set up a student specific account and that you have written down a budget plan and know what's going in and out, because there's nothing worse than being caught out by things like rent's due on the 5th, but we didn't really write that down and it came out and now we're in overdraft and everyone needs to get their money in. It turns into a little bit of a nightmare. So definitely keep a schedule on your phone, some kind of calendar, to make sure you know when bills come in or out. Also, a tip I can say is make sure that you sign off on not paying your council tax, etc., for the house that you stay in, because that's another thing that will just build up if you don't tell them you're students. So my third year, again, for the rest of my time at university, I lived with my partner and we lived in different accommodations. I say different, it was a bit of a nightmare. We stayed in our first place in second year for 3 months. There was then a leak in the floor, which kind of a burst pipe exploded, so we had to move. We moved to second place, still in campus Byron, which was a flat. It was £605 per calendar month. Now, just to put that into perspective for people thinking of Stirling, that is kind of expensive by about £50 more than usual, and we were staying somewhere where you definitely need a car because there was no public transport, so the prices definitely are quite high. We then moved to a few other places that I won't bore everyone with, but there were just things like they raised the rent, so we had to move, etc. But yeah, I would say that the further on you get in university, so as you get to second, third and fourth year, people tend to be a bit more lenient when renting to students because they think, yeah, they're probably, you know, a little bit more mature. Juiper Court, the newest build, that is the best student accommodation. It's got, obviously because it's new, it's got the best kind of, just in general, it's the best. It's got the best rooms because they've thought about the way that they're laid out. So you have around 8 to 12 rooms on one kind of corridor, and on the floor you'll have a couple different ones, a stairwell, you've got like a patio outside, a really big one looking onto the loch, looking onto the university. It's brilliant. It's also brilliant for flat parties, but I would say this is a bit of a niche one, but anyone moving into Juiper Court, their doors are all fire doors, so you can't actually leave your door open for more than about 15 seconds so that it's screaming at you, so make sure that you don't leave your doors open.
If we go into the Stirling area, could you tell us, you mentioned it earlier, but could you tell us a bit more about the Stirling nightlife?
Yeah, of course. So the Stirling area in general, there is quite a lot of shops. I would say that in my opinion, a lot of high streets are kind of dying, unfortunately, anyway. But it is a charming little town. There's some really good eateries. There's a noodle place, which is lovely. There's also a dessert shop, which I was at every single day. You've got a cinema, you've got a view square, you've got bowling. There is a lot of opportunities. In regards to nightlife, like I said, there are only 2 clubs, which are Dusk and Foo Bar. They're nice. If clubbing's your thing, nightlife wasn't hugely my thing. But what you tend to find is a lot of people in their first year will go to the clubs in town and the union events. And then after second year, they'll start getting the train to either Edinburgh or Glasgow for the proper nightlife. And the train's only an hour away. So it's that kind of nice mix of quite a small little feel, but also being able to only be an hour away from the big city.
You mentioned the dessert shop you were always at. Could you tell us the name of that dessert shop?
Yeah, oh goodness, I believe, let me check. I believe that it is called something like bubble something, but I'm going to check. It is honestly so good. My dish when I went there, is really basic, but it is a waffle with Nutella, squirty cream, and strawberries. And not at the same time, mind you, mostly, but I'd get my hot waffle, and then you have to get their rainbow cake. They do the biggest cake slices you've ever seen. They're like the size of my hands, and they're like this thick, and you need to buy them early in the morning, as soon as they open, because they are so popular. The name of the shop is Urban Bubble, guys, in Stirling. You must go. They do like chocolate cake, rainbow cake, etc., and they are cake slices the size of your head, and they're only £4.50, I believe, and you got to go in the morning and get them early. It's amazing.
Those are a good mix.
I would say that it's a good mix. There are quite a few chain shops, but a lot of them have shut down. So you have what's called the Thistle Centre, and the Thistle Centre is like what I mean, it's like a mall, I guess, in America. It's just lots and lots of shops, and there's things like Primark, the huge Primark, which is nice. So you have Primark, you have things like New Look, Fat Face, Lush, always very popular, Clinton Cars, etc. But I would say that outside of that, on the streets, there are quite a few things like cash converters and kind of goldsmiths and a lot of charity shops, which is nice because I believe in sustainability and kind of shopping in charity shops if you can avoid fast fashion. But I would say that there's a nice mix. There's also occasionally people will start opening shops that are handmade goods and things like that, which is nice because Stirling, just to go back to how beautiful it is, Stirling's actually really touristy because, you know, you've got Stirling Castle. So there's actually a castle in the middle of Stirling. You've got Bannockburn, which is also very touristy, and the Wallace Monument, which you have to climb up in your first year. It's a big, like, kind of monument. It's beautiful. I would say that the shops surrounding those are little kind of bars, and they're not chains. You do have a Spoons, don't worry, there is a Wetherspoons, but there are a lot of local little shops, which is nice to support the local community.
Okay. What general advice would you give to students about to study their first year at university?
Sure. So I would say be organised, especially because I'll tell a really quick, brief story of mine where I wasn't organised, is that I had applied for University Student Accommodation and they actually sent it to my Stirling email and I wasn't checking that. For some reason, I decided, oh, I won't get emails there, like why put it on my phone, right? No, I had 3 emails saying last chance, and I literally got it minutes before the university closed, and they'd said last chance, if you don't reply to this email you're not getting student accommodation. So definitely be organized, make sure that you buy stationery and everything before you go. There's nothing worse than starting your course and not having stationery there, and again, try and make it sustainable if you can. I would also say definitely spend your time in first year on campus. So many people say, oh, I'm better than this small town, I'm going off to Edinburgh, I'm going off to Glasgow, but Stirling is beautiful and you really should enjoy the union events while you have them, because as you go through second, third and fourth year, you stop getting as much free pizza, you don't get as many, freshers opportunities. So yeah, embrace the kind of culture of Stirling and being in that inclusive space and just getting involved in everything. I'd also say go to the Give It a Go stalls. So there, during freshers, you get the clubs and the societies. You have things at Stirling like Quidditch Club and all sorts. Go to these clubs because, like I said, in second, third and fourth year, you'll find that you have a bit less time and you'll be off campus exploring more. So definitely make sure you go to every single Give It a Go, because you can always say, I didn't like this club as much, but you can't go in your third year and think, oh, I wish I joined 800 clubs when I had the time.
What advice would you give to students about to study at Stirling University?
So Stirling specifically, I would say take a walk around the loch every single day, which sounds excessive, but it's not, because you'll want to clear your head and you'll also want to explore the beauty of Stirling. I would say if you're studying in Stirling during your first year, get a load of flatmates and go up the Wallace Monument as soon as you can, because it's amazing. And then take a trip to Dr. Noodle, which is a shop in Stirling, I believe it's called, which is a noodle shop right up to Urban Bubble, which is the dessert shop, because that's kind of a rite of passage at this point. I would say go to Fubar and Dusk, which are the 2 nightclubs, and enjoy them. Don't feel the pressure to have to go off of campus and then off into different cities for different opportunities. I would say join as many societies as possible, such as the Disney Society, the Quidditch Society, and anything subject related, because that can be so helpful. So if you're studying politics, definitely join political societies that you feel like you align with, because it's so helpful not just to have a group of people that you can be friends with, but a lot of people at Stirling who join these societies sometimes get lectures in and things, which can also be really useful for your actual kind of work as well. And I would say at Stirling, something that you need to bear in mind, seminars are mandatory. most lectures aren't mandatory, but I definitely recommend going. Don't get into the trap. At Stirling, they've got something called Listen Again, which means that they record lectures and you can actually play them back on video on your computer from Portal. Don't rely on that, because I fell into the trap of thinking, if these are going to be recorded, I'm just going to watch them. Don't do that. Stirling is I'm so thankful they had that feature, but it kind of bred a lot of laziness into the students, including me. So make sure you go to lectures, because you might have a question that you want to ask in the lecture, and you'd watch the recording and be like, oh man, now I need to email the tutor. Also specific to Stirling, seminars have a 3-strike and you're type thing. So seminars are mandatory, and if you don't go without a really valid excuse and you don't go more than 3 times, they can actually cap your grade at 40%. So that's definitely something in mind.
That's crazy.
I know, like, you've not shown up and they're like, well, bye. Like, so yeah, definitely go. And some lecturers will keep a register for their lectures, so make sure that you know which ones do, so that you sit near the front. And again, sorry, full of advice here. If you're going to Stirling in your first year, make sure you go into either cultural or wherever you're having your lecture, sit really near the front. I know that can be daunting, and introduce yourself to your lecturers after the class, because if they see your smiling face when you're in lectures, they're a lot more inclined to help you when you need it. So yeah, definitely, they're all lovely. There's not one, I wouldn't say there's not one really scary lecturer there, at least in my department. So I would say, yeah, introduce yourself to them and just be their best friends.
What advice would you give to the students about to study politics?
What advice I would give? So that's a difficult one, because Stirling is really good for politics, but I would say their library isn't exhaustive. So there is quite a small library compared to some other universities when it comes to politics. And occasionally for things like my dissertation, I'd actually have to go to the local library in town to find some more books. So what I'd say is, if you're studying politics, they're going to ask you to read lots. Obviously, it's university. I wouldn't buy the textbooks, first of all, for politics, because specific Stirling politics textbooks, they're going to set you back like £50 each, and you've got 3 modules twice a year. So don't buy them. And if you're going to buy them secondhand there's a Facebook group called Stirling Secondhand Books. Definitely use that. The library actually provides 2 or 3 textbooks for each module. So just go into the library not right before your seminar, like I used to, but a while before, because you're going to be super organized, and do your work there, because you're going to save yourself £150 every single semester in Stirling. I would say for Stirling specific politics, definitely weigh what you're interested in when it comes to politics, because there are some modules that will suit some, like the environmental. If you're really interested in that, definitely go for those. But there are politics modules. There's one called Great Political Thinkers, and that's not for everyone. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot about kind of great political thinkers such as John Locke, which is really interesting. But some people, for instance, didn't particularly like that module. And there's a module I took, which was called, let me think, it was about human rights in politics. And it was sort of also about law as well. And it was really interesting, but I didn't perform well because it was super like exam heavy and super essay heavy. So what I would say is definitely look into the modules before you go. There's on the portal, you can actually read, even if you're not a student, just type in, Stirling modules, and you can actually read what they're about, and also if they're exam or coursework heavy, and definitely weigh that up for yourself. Politics at Stirling in general is very essay heavy, and I would say that it's good to pick a range of modules so that you're not just doing 6 essays in a term, because they're all 2,500 words, 3,500 words, and they're all going to be really intense. So yeah, definitely make sure you get a bit of a mixture, and I would say try and pick things like Great Political Thinkers. Try and pick modules about the environment. These are the more interesting ones. Personally, I would say definitely try and pick those. So like I said, there was that familial pressure, I think, of my family being like, you will go to university. I don't know how much of a choice I had when it came to going to university. But what I would say is for apprenticeships, I did look into those and they weren't really for me, which is okay. They are for some people. I think for me, all I knew of apprenticeships was, engineering and hairdressing and things, and at the time those weren't career paths I'd considered. But looking back on it, where I am now, I actually feel as though doing something at college or doing an apprenticeship may have actually been a bit better for me. I found university is hugely academic, obviously, and that's not something I'd fully considered. I didn't do terribly in school, but I didn't do amazingly either. And I think that I kidded myself into thinking, oh, well, how hard can it be? And it was really hard. And I think that if you already hate school and you already hate writing essays for school, you will find university very difficult. So just keep that in mind and definitely look into apprenticeships, because there are people I know that are doing apprenticeships right now that started when I started uni that are earning far more than what I'll ever earn. So yeah, of course. So I started Lazy Student in my final year of university, and it was a bit of an escape really for me. And I also really wanted to share my experiences. People that I was friends with in real life liked hearing about kind of my struggles, I guess, with university. And I wanted to make sure that people knew that it's okay if you're suffering from anxiety or depression at university, and that there are people that have gone through that can talk to you. And I just wanted to spread that because I felt really alone. I suffer from chronic migraines, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but it really affected my university work and my mental health. And I wanted people going through that to think, you know, there are people around me that can support me, because it can feel pretty daunting and like you're alone.
And can you tell us where you exist?
Yeah, of course. So the Lazy Student kind of exists everywhere. My website is just type in Lazy Student to Google and you'll find it. You've also got my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/LazyStudent. I'm on basically all social media platforms, definitely not a TikTok star, but I am on TikTok at Lazy Student. I'm on Twitter, and all the links are in the description of my YouTube videos anyway. I'm probably most active on Twitter though, because I cannot take a good Instagram picture to save my life. So students can expect to see a range of university advice and lifestyle content. I really like talking about, like I said, well-being and mental health at university. I like talking about current issues, so what's happened this year with the exam results in Scotland and in England. I like talking about a bit of lifestyle content too, so occasionally, as well as this highly productive university advice, you will get some lifestyle content from me, which will be things like get ready with me's, doing up my office, which is my little YouTube space here, and just kind of more fun videos. But one of the main driving forces behind my platform is I really just want to, one, show people that it's okay whatever they're feeling at uni, good or bad, but I also want to be there to kind of be the driving force. The whole lazy student thing, I was a really lazy student, and I want you to do better than what I did at university. So I want to give you productive advice that will hopefully get you slightly better grades than what I got, and also just make you feel like you can actually go into university feeling organized and feeling as though, you know, I've got this, and this is from someone that has been there and done that. So yeah, that's one of the driving forces of my channel. So currently, that's such a good question. I left university in May actually last year because I was going to summer camp in America, which was an experience which I won't talk about just now, but maybe I'll do a video on it one day. And I came back, I worked in the cinema for a while, and I am currently doing what's called a SKE course, which is a subject knowledge enhancement course for teaching. So I'm actually going to do my PGCE, which is my postgraduate certificate in education, down in England. So I've actually moved to England, and I'm going to be doing teaching and geography for a year. So yeah, and I may even stay on to do my master's. I very much doubt it, but who knows. Oh, lovely. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for interviewing me and letting me on your channel. I think everyone should check it out. It's fantastic. I've been watching all your videos, and I absolutely love your kind of mission statement behind what you want to show. So yeah, I really think that it's such a good resource for students. I would say that I just want to hammer home in my last few minutes, I want to hammer home that it's okay if you don't want to go to university after seeing all of this advice, if you decide it's not for you, but I want you to have a backup plan. If anyone's watching this thinking, oh, you know, this girl has put me off Stirling, I want you to think one of other universities, but I also want you to think, you know, there are so many opportunities in life. And university, for me, I got my politics degree. It didn't really lead into a job. If I'm completely honest, I'm having to go back and do a postgraduate, which is fine. But I don't want you to think that university is the only option in life, because it's not. It doesn't define you. If you don't go, it's not going to be the end of the world. So yeah, I just want people to know to look into apprenticeships and college and going into a job and loads of different things, because, you know, it's not the only option. But if you do go to university, it is fantastic. You make so many friends, and it is a really kind of formative and changing experience where you really find who you are. So yeah, just make the decision that's best for you.